Hello everyone, I'm Professor K. N. Vaksore. In this today's lecture, we are going to study the bevel gears. As we know, the bevel gears are used to transmit the motion between two intersecting shafts. That means these intersecting shafts may be like this, like this, like this. Any type of intersecting shaft orientation may be possible in case of bevel gears. The what we are going to learn and what is the objective of this session. In this session, we are going to study the that geometry of the bevel gears, again the force analysis and its introduction, and this is that means the objective of this session is to that student will able to learn the basics and the kinematics of the bevel gears. These are the bevel gears. We'll find, see here you can concentrate on this is the axis of rotation of this shaft, this is the axis of rotation of the second shaft. These two shafts intersect at common point. For such orientations, or to transmit the motion between such orientations, we need to use the bevel gears. In this case, this angle is of 90 degrees. In other case, if we concentrate over here, this is again one axis of rotation, this second axis of rotation, they are intersecting at this location. That means that angle is less than 90. For such orientation also we can use the bevel gears. There are the three teeth according to the shape of the teeth. There are the three types of bevel gears: straight bevel gear, spiral bevel gear, or the hypoid bevel gear. The bevel gears are used in the locomotive, marine applications, automobile. In every application, we'll find the use of the bevel gears. These are the spiral bevel gears. Again, you'll find one application which is the differential gearbox in the propeller shaft of the four-wheeler or truck. We we have the we need to use this differential gearbox. You will find this is the one pair of differential gearbox, second pair, third pair, three pairs of differential gearbox we need to use to transmit the motion. In this case, from this shaft we need to transmit the motion to this perpendicular shaft, again from this vertical shaft to this horizontal shaft. For such orientation we need to use the bevel gears. These are the straight bevel gears and these are the spiral bevel gears. Just like this you will find the spiral curve. Next, that advantages and the disadvantages. That bevel gears are having the quite operation. That means again they are having the good torque transmitting capacity. Again they are having the good efficiency. If you consider their disadvantages, they are having the high cost. That means high manufacturing cost. Again they need to manufacture in the pair. Again, if one of the tooth of the gear may get fail, we need to replace the both the gears, both the machine gears. This is that means which again add the cost. Again, in order to achieve the higher efficiency, that shaft must be adjusted very precisely. They must be aligned for the position very exactly. Only after that we'll get the uniform velocity ratio and the maximum efficiency. Again, the maximum ratio of velocity ratio is of the 6:1. That means we are not recommended them for the very high speed application. Okay, and for at high speed we will get generate the noise. These are the advantages and the disadvantages of the bevel gears. These are the straight bevel gears which are used in the milling machine. This is the milling machine operation. Okay, now we are going to study the geometry and the nomenclature of the bevel gear. First one is the pitch cone. This is the tooth of the bevel gear. This is the pitch line. This is again the pitch line. This that means that cone which is just equivalent to the gear, and when two cones mesh to each other, they will give the same performance as that of the gear. These are the pitch cone. This is the pitch cone. Okay, next one is the cone center. This is the cone center which is the apex of the cone. Next one is the pitch radius. You will find this is the pitch radius, or this is the total diameter. Every time we are interested in the radius only. Next one is the pitch angle. Add angle made by the that pitch cone with the that center of rotation, which is the pitch angle. This is the included angle gamma, and this total angle is of 2 into gamma. Next one is the back cone angle. Back cone angle, which is again the imaginary cone, which is just perpendicular. This is the line of the pitch cone, and this is perpendicular. And this is again referred as a, this is again one cone, which is referred as a back cone. Okay, next one is the development of the involute teeth on the cone. In this case, we have to consider one pitch cone. We have to consider one base cone on which we have to just wound the paper, and we have to just unwound that paper from the end. It traces one curve which is called as the involute profile, which is the spherical involute profile, just like the our spur gear or the helical gear. Now we will consider the cone geometry. In this case, now these are the two cone two cones, pitch cones. For one, that angle is of gamma 1. For second, that angle is of gamma 2. Radius of the first is of r1, that means pitch cone radius, and for second, which is of r2. Now gamma 1, which is the semicone angle, gamma 2, which is again semicone angle for the gear 2, theta is the shaft angle, r1 is the pitch cone radius that we have studied, and omega 1 and omega 2, which are the angular velocities of the bevel gear 1 and the bevel gear 2. Okay, now if we consider the geometry, just consider this right angle triangle. This is the right angle triangle. That sine gamma 1 is of r1 upon op, that op is the hypotenuse, and that r, which is the opposite side. Again sine gamma 2, which is of, this is again the right angle triangle over here. This is the that opposite side, which is of r2, and hypotenuse, which is the op. Okay, now if you take the ratio of these two, you will find sine gamma 1 upon sine gamma 2, which is of r1 plus r2. Again, that total angle between these two shafts, which is the shaft angle, which is the theta, which is of gamma 1 plus gamma 2. Now I'll just rearrange this term. Sine gamma 1 is equal to r1 upon r2 into sine gamma 2. Again, here in this, I'll just replace this gamma 2 is of theta minus gamma 1. I'll just, we know the formula sine theta plus phi, or the sine a plus a minus b. We get sine theta cos gamma 1 minus cos theta sine gamma 1, remaining is same. Okay, by dividing both this side, that means this side and this side, by the gamma cos gamma, we will find tan gamma is equal to r1 upon r2 into sine theta minus cos theta tan phi. Okay, this is the same equation again. Now that tan gamma, by rearranging the terms, tan gamma 1 is equal to tan gamma 1 plus r1 r2, that means this term that we need to multiply over here, that we have to again move over here. Tan gamma 1 plus r1 upon r2 into cos theta into tan gamma 1 is equal to r1 plus r1 upon r2 into sin theta. Again, if we take that tan gamma 1 as a common term, we will find tan gamma 1 into bracket 1 plus r1 upon r2 into cos theta is equal to r1 upon r2 into sin theta. That means that tan gamma 1, if we find this value, tan gamma 1 is equal to this value divided by this, which is of r upon r2 into sin theta upon 1 plus r1 upon r2 into cos theta. And this is our final expression. By taking in this equation, by taking r1 upon r2 as a common term, that r1 upon r2 gets cancelled, and that tan gamma 1 is equal to sin theta upon gamma r2 upon r1 plus cos theta. This is the final expression for the tan gamma 1, which is mentioned in terms of the total shaft angle and the pitch cone radius. Again, as we know that r1 upon r2 is equal to omega 2 upon omega 1. Again, if we replace this in this equation, in this equation, you will get that tan gamma 1 is equal to sin theta upon omega 1 plus omega 2 plus cos theta. Again, by using the same geometry and the same concept, we can find out the tan gamma 2 is equal to sin theta. In this case, it is of r2 upon r1. You have to just change it, which is of r1 upon r2 plus cos theta. Again, here also it becomes change. Instead of omega 1 upon omega 2, it becomes omega 2 upon omega 1. That's why tan gamma 2 is equal to sin theta into bracket omega 2 upon omega 1 plus cos theta. In this way, we have to find out the gamma 1 and the gamma 2. That means that velocity ratio will be given to you, that theta will be given to you. From this you can find out this gamma 1 and the gamma 2. Now we'll do the force analysis. Now this is the one shaft, one gear, bevel gear. This is the another, which is the counterpart of this, whether it rotates in the clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. Just try to understand this. There are three forces again: radial force, axial force and the tangential force. Radial force which is towards the center, this radial force which is towards the center, radial force. One is the tangential force which is like this, and one axial force which is like this. These are the three forces, and in all the terms that only tangential force which is responsible to transmit the power or the motion. Remaining two forces, that radial force tries to increase the distance radially between the two gears, and axial force which tries to separate two gears axially. Okay, now in this case ft1, just try to understand, for both the gears ft1 ft2 both are along the same axis. That means ft1 is equal to ft2. Now just consider the second pair vertical, just consider the forces along the vertical axis. That means fr1, which is of its radial force of this gear, which is the axial force of its counterpart. That means fr1 is equal to fx2, fx which is the axial force. And next one is the, for this gear, that means third force which is along the z axis. In that case, that fx1, that means force along the z axis, fx1 which is the radial, which is equal to radial force of its counterpart. Okay, in this way we can find out the forces. Again, how to find out these forces? ft1, that means we require any one value, that ft, that total power will be given to you. P is equal to T into omega, and T is equal to, or F into, that power is equal to F into V, or the T into omega. Again, that ft is the tangential force that we can find out using this equation. By, if that power is known to us and that angular velocity or the velocity is known to us, we can find out the tangential force. By putting this value in this equation, we can find out the ft2. After getting that ft2, then we can find out the remaining forces by considering the same concept as that we have studied in the helical gears. Okay, with this I will finish. Okay, now that we'll finish the our task of the bevel gears. Now some general concepts that I want to mention over here: efficiency of all the gears and their velocity, that means velocity ratio. For the spur gear, that maximum velocity is near about the 6:1. For the bevel gears, 5:1. Spiral gear, 4:1. For the worm and worm wheel, that range is as to 75:1, but we can obtain up to the 300:1 in case of worm and the hypoid gears. I will show you that hypoid gears. Next, in case of helical gear, we can obtain that velocity ratio, maximum velocity ratio, which is up to 10:1. And in case of cycloid gear tooth gears, which is of the 100:1. Efficiency range, in all the gears, that spur gear and the helical gear are having the maximum efficiency. Again, that worm gears are having the minimum efficiency, and remaining gears are in between of that worm and worm wheel and the spur gear. Now we'll come to the end of this session. In this session, we learn the uses and the introduction of the bevel gears. Again, their geometry, their nomenclature, and the force analysis. This will helpful in the designing of the gearboxes and the gear trains for the industrial and the automobile application. With this, I will finish my session over here. Thank you for patience listening. Thank you very much.